So good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And I know that we're absolutely in the creativity already. Aren't we creative? We're creative in this thing called life. And so some of us are really creative. I can take a look and look at how I'm feeling sometimes, and I can say, whew, I am creative. Wow. And I can look at what that season that's of gratitude that's happening. So I wanted to thank you for bringing all of your candy. I'm grateful for you bringing all that candy. And I'm trusting that all of us have made good use of the extra hour. Did we all sleep in? Did we do something productive? Yeah. So, and just think if we had that extra hour every day, and knowing that our spiritual practices, all of the universal principles that we study here and embody and integrate, all of those principles and practices can really add value and add time and energy to our life. So we're amplifying and up-leveling what we're living. And so we get to have lifelong learning. We get to have, I'm kind of a student all the time. I like to think of it, that we're teachable, that I'm learning something all the time. And I was looking at my journey through education. And it's great that we have a CNM student here. She's kind of checking us out, and we're one of her class projects. So we get to explore together and be in this lifelong learning that's happening. And as I'd done my, a friend of mine had asked me if I collected things, and I said, no, I don't really collect things, but I collect experiences. Because you don't have to dust them. They're usually the right color, they're the right shape and size, and I can bring those experiences forward with me. And so much of my traveling, much of the education, much of the classes and experiences and concerts and good things that we have here, it's all about leading that inspired life. And so as I looked at I'd done a bachelor's degree in starting out from the sandbox, I think. When I was in preschool, I was teaching kids how to swing, and kind of had just been this teacher all my life with my parents both being teachers. And so I kind of grew up with this perspective of what may I learn and what may I share. So it's interesting if we move through the creativity of this month. So we usually have a theme of the year, which is sowing seeds of greatness. And then we have a theme of the month, which is sowing seeds of creativity. And throughout education, as I looked at, I'd earned this bachelor's degree in communications and PR, and then I'd done that in just a couple and a half years, and I thought, well, what am I going to do now? So I'd out of the chute, well, now what am I going to do? So then I went to graduate school and then did ministerial school. And then I became a licensed professional prayer practitioner. And then I think traveling really is still my best education. And I had become a national nonprofit executive and worked with nonprofits and traveled a lot. And then I became a certified association executive and was able to apply all of that learning, and it's still applicable here to what we're up to today. And then I was a business development manager for a software company, and I got to fly around the country. And one time I was in Miami and got to fly down to Grand Cayman for a vacation. It was really good to piggyback things, and then just the whole education. At one point I was able to live off my earnings and semi-retire, and then I said, well, now what? And so then we started to flip some houses and build some homes, and we went to go build a home that wasn't so easy to build. And so today's topic is about designing a new life. And so we got to design a new home in the midst of what looked like a challenge or a problem. And so then I became a certified paralegal because I said, how do we get out of this? Oh no, we're in this house. How do we get out of it? And so then what that led me to be was a court-appointed mediator where I could be altruistic and serve some best interests of kids. So we were able to climb out of that house, and then I was able to serve out of some families to be able to climb out of their situation that they were in that looked to be really, really challenging, and really some was really, really awful, and some was really painful, and some was really sad. And then I had an awakening after I'd done that for about a decade. Really gritty work, but I'm grateful for kind of being a bodhisattva and being a beneficial presence, sort of bringing through that thread of being a beneficial presence, like we have those universal principles and practices here. that we can lead those principles and practices in our life. And then I answered the call to be of service up at the Center for Spiritual Living in San Jose. And we had about 400 members and growing. And so I bring that was kind of like boot camp, so then I was able to bring some of those resources here. So sowing seeds of creativity is what we're up to, and we have the creativity, we have the resourcefulness, we have that lifelong learning that's happening here, and that as we take these principles and practices in our daily life, we can see what our best education is and apply this wonderful love that's happening. We can apply the amazing relationships with some open communication. Perhaps we're opening up to more open communication. We can perhaps in the season of gratitude, because we have Thanksgiving, or I like to call it Thanks-living. We have Thanksgiving coming up, and so we're in a season of gratitude. And so I'm going to begin to look at this lifelong learning, this thread, as more steps of being grateful, as being generous, as being more self-aware, as being adaptable. Along my course of whatever this path is, I got to be adaptable and flexible and a bit more fluid, and bring that to my daily thinking, bring that to my daily emotions, bring that to whatever actions that I'm taking. And Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of the Science of Mind philosophy, which is a guide for spiritual living, he's synthesized world traditions and religions and a lot of mysticism that's applicable for today. It's practical. And he talked about in the introduction, and Carol gave us a little bit of chapter 22, which is on creativity. And what's really cool is the chapters of this book of the year are about a paragraph long. So it's digestible and it's applicable. And so in chapter 22, we got to hear more about designing a new life. And even in the introduction, he asks us, why are you interested in a new design for living? The odds are that in some aspect of our health, our affairs, or relationships, that things are not all that they are desired to be. And so as I looked at my lifelong learning, I've leaped out or sprung forth from situations that may have been challenging to find solutions and to apply what the learning is. And so Ernest goes on, he says, because we're on a first name basis. He's by my bedside, he's in my living room. I'd read him in the shower if I could. He says, in some way or another, the pattern of your life and experience has not come up to what your hopes and expectations are. You feel a need to get out of your well-worn rut and move into a fuller, richer experience of life. And if I think about it, like my pair of shoes may be well-worn, and I may need to try on a new pair of shoes and walk in them. So he continues, he says, this is in the introduction, so it's like we're at the very beginning of our creativity, our sowing seeds. What can be done about establishing a new design for living in your personal experience? First, there must be a willingness, a desire to cut ourselves loose from undesirable things of the past. We're cutting them loose, we're letting them be and setting them free. We can make the change and step out from those well-worn shoes. We can step out of what may have been undesirable in the past into a bright new future. Second, number 2, we need to enlarge our viewpoint, develop an eagerness to encounter new ideas, evaluate them, and assimilate those which we can best use and adapt for purposes and requirements. There's adaptability, and we're engaged in our life. We're not just observing what's going on outside of us, but we're not just involved in life, but we're engaged in life. If we're willing, we can take those 2 steps and loose ourselves from undesirable things of the past. loose ourselves, like taking off those shoes. Sometimes I buy a pair of shoes and I really do need to give them back. And when I go to the thrift stores, I have to be careful not to buy my own stuff back. Oh, I got rid of that, loosed that one. And so Ernest goes on, he says, this is not always easy, for all too often, the way that we have become accustomed to thinking and feeling and taking action along certain lines, with a tendency to accept the inevitable as certain situations, conditions that may have been ingrained. They may have ingrained themselves into our makeup. I may be entrenched in some area, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally. I may see that pattern that's showing up that may be well established. So in my lifelong learning, Ernest continues, he says, however, we can make the change and step out of what may have been an undesirable past into a bright future. So when I watched the balloons take off, and I just needed to go a couple blocks up for the best view over this beautiful empty lot. There were some that were flying over, and then on this cul-de-sac, there was one balloon that was getting ready to be launched. And so the basket was on the ground, and they were blowing it up. And there was a point in time that this grandfather came over, and he says to this 8-year-old, he says, Sophia, come here, I need your help. Come here and hold on to this basket. Make sure that it doesn't take off without being ready. Knowing that we have this preparation, we're preparing for this to take off. But hold down, and it's as if an 8-year-old could hold down this basket, right? So you can imagine all the wind being blown up before they'd turn the fires on for it to go up. And so the grandfather says, Sophia, okay, we're ready now. And it lifted off. And he says, be sure, totally let go of that basket. And it was just this beautiful experience of, think of the memories that she's going to have of how she was a part of something larger. It was one of these days they were racing back to the Balloon Fiesta Park, and she was a part of that. This 8-year-old holding the basket before it took off. She was an integral part of that whole larger thing that was happening. And she got to make a difference. Sophia, this 8-year-old, got to make a difference. And sometimes in our life, it's not always that easy where we can just let go of the basket and have it take off or unloose, as Dr. Ernest Holmes says, to make the change and step out of what may have been undesirable and have a bright future. And boy, was this balloon bright. And what's really cool is the grandpa came over and he says, before it had the fire in it, and just as it was full with the air, he says, come here, take a picture of the inside of the balloon. And I had never done this. I thought, how cool is that? I got the inside, and there were so many beautiful colors, and it just gave me goosebumps. So if we look at how we can all look at our inside and how glorious that is, and that we can really fly and soar with that, imagine those memories. Imagine that we're having a bright future in the making already. We've got the air, we have before the fire turns on, and as the fire turns on, we can let go and soar. So if we're willing, Dr. Ernest Holmes says, that if we're willing, we can take these 2 steps to lead a new employment of life. We get to be engaged and employed in life. We can practice a new engagement of this presence, of this colorful power that is within us at all times. So we're our own architect. We may not have the blueprint if we're moving through a challenge in our health. We may not totally know what that blueprint is. It could be that some of us have a plan now to move out of debt. It could be that we have a relationship that needs some amends and some forgiveness. It could be that we need to be a bit more grateful or generous in some area, or adapt. We may be stuck in a certain area. So we're finding out how to be a better architect. We may not already have the blueprint, but we're finding out how with these universal principles and practices, with spiritual tools to work with how to be a better architect. Lifelong learning here. And we have the information on new building materials if we're building a house. We have new techniques of construction. We have the wisdom, and we can start with complete assurance that there is the design. As we're designing a new life, there's a pattern which is unfolding. There's a beautiful design for living which develops us as a strong, caring, willing, engaged person, and we can begin to notice even more abundance in all things. We can say thank you and be grateful in this season. And so in this lifelong learning, one of the most popular classes, it's not at C&M yet, maybe it is, but it's at Stanford University. And so as I was thinking of my education path and how I can apply that now, this popular class is called, guess what? Designing Your Life. Yeah. So think about that. It's grounded in navigating our best choices. It's one of the partners is the one who invented the Apple's mouse that we all kind of use an adaptation of today. Or I'm still mouse dependent, so I can mouse around a bit. It's supposed to be funny. So it's led by Dave Evans, and he designed Apple's mouse. And Bill Barnett, who's the executive director of Stanford's design program. And so they have this class on designing your life. And so one student said that, I know I have this feeling that I feel and I know that I have true empowerment over my work. That because I know what I stand for, because they've designed their life, they have something called an odyssey plan. They're on an odyssey, and there's this pattern that's unfolding for them. Because I know what I stand for, and I have the tools, that I can approach things and encounter no matter what it is in my life. I have an approach. I have a way to navigate. I can design and be that architect. And Evans says, number one, first, dysfunctional beliefs get blown up. That's the step that they do first when they walk into class. And we get to look at what's no longer working and go within. And he says, then we give a set of tools and ideas to take steps of building the way forward. Here's what they learn. Gratitude. Generosity. He encourages a gratitude journal. Self-awareness. And adaptability. And to paraphrase, they talk about building your life, instead of building your life around somebody else's ideas or opinions, building your own life, having an odyssey, and being a part of a circle of people, and orienting ourselves first as love. This is Stanford's class. Orienting ourselves first as love. And then start to build the way forward. They learn gratitude, generosity, self-awareness, and adaptability. And one of the students said, who's about 25 years old, she says, I wanted to take care of myself. And sometimes some of us are so busy taking care of others or other things or other situations that we get to take a step back and examine our adaptability and say, I want to take care of myself. And she said, I felt a lot of pressure before I had this Odyssey plan. She chose 3 different scenarios for her life. And we all can have different scenarios, whether it's for our health, our growing in our area of prosperity, for our enhancing of relationships, for whatever that sense of inner peace is that's within us. She says, I chose 3 different scenarios. Number 1, I could work in healthcare and go to business school. She had her lifelong learning, her pathway. Number 2 is that she could be of service in the Peace Corps. And you know what? She lit up about being that, being an activist for peace and being of service. And number 3 is that she could go on the TV show the TV show American Ninja Warrior. 3 different scenarios. She was adaptable, and so she'd felt a lot of pressure before she had that plan and had designed her life. And she may not have known the future, but she could really create that point of view that I have these 3 options. That no matter what, I have some prototypes out there. And in New Thought, Ageless Wisdom, we call that a mental equivalent. We hold out that image or that idea of what we'd like to experience. We imagine and visualize that mental equivalent, which is a term that Emmett Fox had coined. And so she had that prototype. And we also have that it's what's available to us in what we might become. We know that those scenarios and those prototypes are already available because we're a part of something larger, much like that balloon. We are a part of that. Sophia, the 8-year-old, was a part of that. And she got to learn how to hold onto the basket and then let go so it could be on its way. There's also one phrase that's in this class at Stanford. They talk about, guess what? Being intentional. Being intentional. And that catches the students' ears. They get to set their intent, and that's where they place their attention. And so she now invests in relationships. She says, I've been really intentional about cultivating relationships. I've been maintaining friendships. Even when I'm really stressed. Sometimes when we have our own thing going on, it's hard to look and see where we're maintaining or caring for our intimate relationships, whether they're our inner circle of relationships or our outer circle of relationships. And she also says she tries to read 1 book a week, if not, 1 book a month. And then at one point, she says, I had this chart on my wall. Refrigerators are good for that, too. I still have the kind of refrigerator you can put the magnet up. And so she asked herself these questions. Did I eat healthy today? Did I see friends outside of work today? And how do I feel on a scale of 1 to 10? How do I feel? Am I sad? Am I mad? Am I glad? Or am I afraid? And I believe that and I heard this verse from Marshall Rosenberg, it may have come from other sources, but if we look at our emotions and how I feel today on a scale of 1 to 10, we have various shades of those four basic tendencies. And so our thoughts have an impact on how we're feeling throughout the day and how we're taking action through the day. And so she said that she began tracking things that I thought would make me happy, and that really worked. She moved toward joy in her life. And at the end of the day, she notices the importance of gratitude in designing her life. She noticed, and she says, my boyfriend and I, before we go to sleep, we say our gratitudes. And so they may have 3 one day, they may have a dozen another day. They say their gratitudes. She also learned to be more of service to her friends and family. She became more of a servant leader in her area that she is. And it was so successful for her. She tried it for a month. Then she extended it for 2 months. It was so successful. It led her in that design of her life to be even more successful. She took it to heart and had that lifelong learning process move her forward. And she says, I began mentally calculating whether I had time to care for a friend. And, I drink these green smoothies in the morning, and they're delicious, and they're filled with protein and nutrients. And I just needed to say, boy, do I have time to bring this to a friend who's in need, because she really needs some energy and needs to have my friendship, and it's something that I could give to her. Do I have time to bring a green smoothie to her, to a friend? I hadn't seen her in months, but I brought her a green smoothie. Sometimes my friends and I, we get together for a cup of tea. And it's delicious. Peppermint from Trader Joe's or ginger helps our balance. I feel a lot more balance when I have a little ginger. So she was paying attention to her relationships. She was paying attention to how she could be of service, how she could provide nutrients for herself and to notice that pattern that was unfolding. And she even says, well, I even incorporated exercise into that. When I went to visit my friend, I rode my bike so I'd have more exercise. Her friend was in bicycling distance, and so it added value to her life, it added value to her life by being actively engaged in that way. So design thinking is what they call this at Stanford. They think about the design, and it's a values-based. They look at values, and it's practical. And then they have a whole bunch of tools. So in our recent Path to Wealth class that we have had here, participants are living more intentionally, and they've had results. During this class, we've experienced meditation, we've experienced prayer, we've experienced some of the folks candidating for some jobs, and have had some successful callbacks within a 3-week period of time. And it's been lovely because there's new viewpoints. There's new opportunities to be experienced and to learn and to grow from that. And one person said, well, it's beautiful to know that at the end of my affirmations or the end of my affirmative prayers that I take to heart, that I can say this or something better. I am experiencing the generosity of the universe in my life's work in a new way, and experiencing my passion in a new way. I'm experiencing the inspiration in a new way. And I'm having all of my needs met and experiencing this or something better or something more succinct, whatever works. Just imagine whatever you'd like to have be life-affirming and say it's this or something better. The divine source is all, and I experience radiant health and vibrant vitality in my life, and it's this or something better that I'm experiencing. So that I'm not limiting it with my human idea, but I'm opening up that opportunity to experience the highest and the best thing. I want you to say with me that I feel and know that great things are happening. You want to say that with me? I feel and know that great things are happening. How does that feel? Does that make me a little bit more glad? And there's various shades of glad. I might have a sense of contentment or satisfaction or fulfillment or joy. I may be a bit more glad about that. I feel and know that great things are happening. And today's discussion group is going to go through some of these feelings that we're talking about, whether I'm feeling mad or sad or glad or afraid about something. And so Carol Campbell's going to be over there after service by 11:30, and there's some wonderful questions that are happening, so you can take the teaching even deeper. Next Saturday, we're going to have a concert with an inner peace troubadour who just sang for almost 10,000 people at the Parliament of the World's Religions that was in Salt Lake City. So if you want to have an experience of inner peace, we'll be here next Saturday night at 7 p.m. Feel free to bring a friend. And her name is Cecilia St. King, and she travels for about 3 years now. She's traveled the country, and she's coming to High Desert. She's coming to our center with her guitar, some of her original compositions about inner peace, and also some standard things that we'll be boogieing our shoes, those new pair of shoes with. Also, we'll hear more about next Sunday. We'll have community conversation. And what we know is that it's with yours truly, with our board president, Lynn Harms, and our leadership, and that we'll be gathering in love and oneness. And we are going to invite you to bring questions and thoughts of what you'd like to see. Our community, keep doing, stop doing, and start doing, and all participate in that so that we can realize love, our vision, love, abundance, and appreciation even more. And there's a metaphor which you may have heard. It's a wonderful story about this daughter comes home and she says, everybody go like this. She says, my life is so hard. I need to design a new life. My life is so hard. It's difficult. I've been experiencing hardships. Things were so hard for her, and she did not know how she was going to make it. So she came home to her mom, and she says, I just want to give up. I'm done. I want to give up. She did not know how she was going to make it. So her mom was in the kitchen and she filled 3 pots with boiling water. She opened up the refrigerator and she fished out the carrots, really wonderful, big with the juicy, organic carrots. And then she also pulled out the eggs and she placed them in a bowl. And then she pulled out the decaf French roast from Trader Joe's that's so yummy. She pulled out some coffee beans and placed that in a bowl. And she turned to her daughter and she says, "Tell me what you see." There's 3 pots of boiling water, carrots, egg, and some coffee beans. So she says, "I see carrots and eggs and coffee beans." And her mother brought her closer and she had her to feel the carrots. And she had her feel the hardness. And she noticed that they were somewhat soft. And then she said, "Well, feel these eggs." And so the daughter took the egg and she broke it. And then after she pulled off the shell, what she realized, well, we'll just go ahead. We'll put the carrots in the hot water. We'll put the eggs in the hot water. And then we're going to have these beans that we're going to grind, because we have one of those fancy grinders. We're going to grind that French roast. And her daughter smiled as she watched the cooking, because she didn't really cook much. And so she put the carrots in the hot water. Before it was hard, then it became soft. And then she put those eggs in the hot water. And it was soft, but then it became hard. And then when the beans were ground and they threw that in the hot water, guess what? It got to be a bit more fragrant and more flavorful, and it blended and became something brand new. It transformed and became something brand new. It had a new design in the way that it had expressed life. And so the daughter says, "Well, what does it mean that this is happening? What does it mean?" And the mother explained that each of these objects, the carrots, the eggs, and the coffee, faced the same activity. There was boiling water. It had that same situation. It had that adversity, whatever that condition was. It had that same boiling water. And the carrot went in strong and hard, and it was unrelenting. And however, it was subjected to that boiling water, and then it became weak. It became more soft. It may be more adaptable, maybe more delicious. The egg had been fragile, right? And its thin outer shell had protected its liquid interior. But after sitting in the boiling water, it became hardened. The ground coffee beans were unique, however. They were put in the boiling water, and it changed the water. So the mother asked her daughter, "Which are you?" When adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a carrot? Are you an egg? Are you a coffee bean? Do you become soft? Do you become hard? Do you blend and transform and transmute and become something that's flavorful and fragrant and delicious? And think of this. Who am I? Am I the carrot? It seems strong and amidst whatever pain or adversity there might be going on. Do I become soft, or do I lose my strength, or do I become even more pliable and delicious? Am I the egg that starts with a malleable heart that changes with the heat? Or do I have a fluid spirit? No matter what, if there's a loss, if there's a death, if there's a breakup, if there's a financial hardship, if there's a challenging health situation, or some other trial, do I become hardened and stiff? Do I have a fluid spirit? Does my shell look the same, but on the inside, maybe I'm bitter, or maybe I'm stiff with a hardened heart? Or am I actually like the coffee bean that becomes delicious and you can add stuff to it? a little 2% or a little vanilla or hazelnut. We are becoming part of life in this new way. And when I had traveled to Costa Rica years ago, I learned how coffee came to be. They said, "What is this stuff? It's just this bean stuff. What do you do with it?" And it was actually the monks in Italy that had thrown it into the fireplace in a pot of boiling water, and it became delicious. It was a religious experience. It came up through Africa. Coffee's a religious experience. It goes with my meditation in the morning. Yeah? And so in Italy, it's the monks in Italy who first discovered where coffee came from. So I'm ever grateful and humbled, humbled to those monks. So back to that educational experience place, I can know that there's that fluid spirit, and that I'm generous, and that I'm compassionate, and that I'm adaptable, and that, like in many relationships, it's a gentle reminder to connect with who we are, and to live in a meaningful way with clarity. And the daughter got clear on whether she was like a carrot or an egg or those coffee beans. There was clarity. And Dr. Ernest Holmes says in A New Design for Living, and he writes in the conclusion, so now we've done the whole book from introduction to conclusion now, is this like the Cliff's Notes. As for designing a new life for yourself, this might be a good time to remind you, if at first you don't succeed, think again. So, what do you want to do with these beans? What do you want to do with it? And let's throw them in the boiling water in the fireplace and discover something new, that we can become, even something greater, that we can transform whatever the situation is around us, whatever that boiling water may be, that we can elevate ourselves to another level. We can become something that's delicious and scrumptious. And this week, we have some friends that I experienced a situation. I was walking on a trail, 7 miles. Do this again. 7 miles. It's usually about 3 to 4 miles, but we were doing 7 miles, which was awesome. And we discovered on the trail was this rattlesnake. Now that was an adverse condition. It let us know it was there, and it rattled, and we just, run, is what we did. We said, run. So we didn't take time to say, am I mad or sad or glad? But we were afraid, and that was just a natural fight or flight response. And boy, it brought to our attention that I need to be grateful that it just let us know that it really didn't want to bother with us. You know, it was more afraid of us than we were of it. We got to run. And so we brought this adverse condition and said, okay, it's a good thing that we were afraid in this instant, and we noticed it, and we got out of its way. We elevated, we took the higher road. we elevated ourselves to another level because we needed to stay out of its way. And so the snake let us know it was there, and we elevated ourselves to another level. So we got to, in essence, not even be the carrot or the egg or it was more the coffee bean, as we know we're wise and we know to stay out of its way, and that then we can move on. And if we think of our, whatever area it is in our life that we would like to elevate our awareness and have a bit more gratitude and generosity and self-awareness and be more adaptable. If we think of one area, whether that's inner peace, whether that's our vitality, our energy, whether it's our area of our affluence, whether it's some one relationship, just think of one thing where we would like to elevate ourselves to another area. Take a moment, and then if you don't mind, just turn to someone and let them know if you're feeling more like a carrot or an egg or a coffee bean in that area. You don't have to share what it is, but we want to support you in blending whatever that is to have that delicious French roast. So go ahead, we'll take 30 seconds, 15 seconds each. Just say, I feel like a carrot or an egg or a coffee bean today. So today is the day for this recipe of designing a new life. And just know that we can design our new life in a creative way this month, and that we can have the fragrance and that flavor of that coffee bean. And we can have that which is the most creative thing happening for us. And that we can look throughout the day and see where we are and what we're becoming even more fully as being grateful and generous Oh, and self-aware. So we have the wisdom. We have this wisdom and we have this adaptability. So I invite us to turn within in this moment and experience this creativity, experience the joy that we just shared with each and every one here. And just we have a prayer chest here, just knowing that all of your prayers are enhanced and enlivened, and that there's so much good divine energy that is happening, and feeling well supported in this loving community. So I invite us to turn within for this moment of inner celebration. And just having a deep breath right here and allowing this creativity to flow, this creative source energy. There is this source, this one source, this thing called life. It is good, it is very good, it is the goodness and the oneness from which all flows. There is peacefulness. There is that infinite presence and power on which we draw upon for this beautiful divine pattern which is unfolding, this odyssey plan that is happening, and knowing that there is a spiritual discovery and that I am connected as a spiritual explorer. And exploring in a new way, knowing that any situations that are calling to be transformed are enlivened and elevated to a new level. There is that energy, the source, which is enlivening and enlarging our viewpoint. And so knowing that there is a wider view, that there is an experience of creativity in our life, there is the support and all of the situations that we are springing from, the sense of well-being is welling up in this moment. There's a wellspring of well-being in our hearts, in our minds, in our emotions, realizing that there are all of the beautiful colors and that, yes, spirit is all that there is. It's all spirit. It's all the source, the loving source. And knowing that all is provided for, that all needs are met, that all is taken care of, and all is well. Coming from this calm poise and assurance and confidence of that which is the love, the healing presence and power which is already in our life, and relying upon this to let go and let be and set free with a sense of gratitude. I am so grateful, and knowing that there is a generous universe which just is absolutely providing for each and every one of us. And I release this word into the creative medium, which is creative and acts upon this word. So I know that it is with great joy that we move forward right here and right now with a sense of celebration in our hearts. And so be it, and so it is.